can. How useful are so-called charges of Russophobia as a way to prevent clamping down on Russian state influence in British society, politics, property markets, etc.? Yeah, look, I don't think... I think with anything like Russophobia, you cannot simply assume that someone is dodgy because they are Russian, but there are very few ways to make an obscene amount of money in Russia without having ties to the state. And I don't want to libel anybody here, but without perhaps wandering into some areas of intense grey, venturing on black. The Russian economy is built in a large part on state patronage, on sort of government contracts. You need, there's a concept in Russian, dates back sort of decades, called krysha, which literally means roof, where you have somebody who is senior enough in the system that they will run interference on other people that will kind of protect you from the state, and will also protect you from other people's attempts to utilize state organs to mess with you. So all of that basically means that while, Russophobia sort of, I think, was a real thing, especially decades ago when Hollywood was putting out movie after movie about how evil Russians are. I think it's somewhat less of a thing now. But I do think that when it comes to sort of large investments from Russians into the UK, a certain degree of skepticism is warranted and is not necessarily sort of racist or prejudiced, just because if you manage to make a significant amount of money in the Russian Federation, enough that you can sort of buy huge chunks of land in central London, it is probably not illegitimate to ask about the extent to which you are connected to President Vladimir Putin and his regime, his coterie, the people around him, and what you have basically done to make that money. It's also not kind of irresponsible to ask what kind of hold Putin's regime may still have on you, depending on where your existing assets in Russia are, say, situated, where your families and so on. So I don't think like throwing around charges of Russophobia is hugely helpful in preventing it, because I think you can sort of separate those two. Good. Question from Joffrey of Monmouth was asked: do you think the Conservative Party's reliance on Russian donations will compromise the UK's will to enact the most effective sanctions possible? I don't think so, to be very honest. I know that would be fun. And I think what it will preclude is them leaning into like a big a like wide cross-party investigation of Russian money in public life. They won't want that, I suspect, because they won't like what it turns up, and it's going to be embarrassing for them. But I don't think it'll actually prevent them from doing things like rolling out sanctions or even fighting Russian money, just because a lot of the Russian money they've been getting is so entrenched in the system that I don't think it's going to get pulled out by a review like this. There are Russians in the House of Lords that are funding them, and those guys aren't going anywhere. It's also just in terms of, ultimately, as much as they like money and donations, they like votes more, and the downside risk of being seen to go soft on your donors, given the recent scandals they've had, I suspect, and don't prove me wrong, Boris, that they will want to be, if anything, they will want to demonstrate that they're not subject to Russian money, and they'll go the other way. Maybe I'm hopelessly naive. Also, I don't necessarily think that UK politics works the same way as US politics, in the sense that I don't know that, I think your your system is less reliant, and individual like MPs are less reliant on donations than congressmen are in the US. So buying influence is a little bit harder. A little bit harder in the UK, I think, than it is in the US, where every congressman needs to raise like $30,000 a week in order to finance their re-election bid, and so is kind of forever at the mercy of those who are capable of writing those kind of checks to super